Good morning, guys. Let's flip on over to Acts chapter 19, verse 21. It says, "When these things were accomplished, Paul purposed in the Spirit, when he had passed through Macedonia and Achaia, to go to Jerusalem. After I had been there, I must also see Rome. So he sent into Macedonia two of those who ministered to him, Timothy and Erastus. But he himself stayed in Asia for a time. And about that time there arose a great commotion about the way." Morning, Susan. And Dad. Let's hear about the way. I got to look at you guys. Okay, verse 24. "For a certain man named Demetrius the silversmith, who made silver shrines of Diana, brought no small profit to the craftsmen. He called them together with the workers of similar occupation and said, 'Men, you know that we have our prosperity by this trade. Moreover, you see and hear that not only at Ephesus, but throughout almost all Asia, this Paul has persuaded and turned away many people, saying that they are not gods which are made with hands. So not only is this trade of ours in danger of failing or falling into disrepute, but also the temple of the great goddess Diana may be despised and her magnificence destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worship.' Now when they heard this, they were full of wrath and cried out, saying, 'Great is Diana of the Ephesians.' So the whole city was filled with confusion and rushed into the theater with one accord, having seized Gaius and Aristarchus, Macedonians, Paul's travel companions. And when Paul wanted to go into the people, the disciples would not allow him. Then some of the officials of Asia, who were his friends, sent to him pleading that he would not venture into the theater. Some therefore cried one thing, and some another, for the assembly was confused, and most of them did not know why they had come together. And they drew Alexander out of the multitude, and the Jews putting him forward. And Alexander motioned with his hand and wanted to make his defense to the people. But when they found out that he was a Jew, all with one voice cried out for about 2 hours, 'Great is Diana of the Ephesians.'" Verse 35, "And when the city clerk had quieted the crowd, he said, 'Men of Ephesus, what man is there who does not know that the city of the Ephesians is temple guardian of the great goddess Diana, and of the image which fell down from Zeus? Therefore, since these things cannot be denied, you ought to be quiet and do nothing rashly. For you have brought these men here who are neither robbers of temples nor blasphemers of your goddess. Therefore, if Demetrius and his fellow craftsmen have a case against anyone, the courts are open and there are proconsuls. Let them bring their charges against one another. But you have any other inquiry to make, it shall be determined in the lawful assembly. For we are in danger of being called in question for today's uproar, there being no reason which we may give account for this disorderly gathering.' And when he had said these things, he dismissed the assembly." 20 verses. That's like a record. Why all 20? Well, because it's one big story. And maybe you logged in halfway through the 20 verses. But what do we see? Paul's at Ephesus. They made mention about the image that fell down from Zeus. There is a specific statue of Diana, whom Artemis, Greek versus Roman names, and they believe it fell down from heaven, and they worship this image. And there is this temple there to her, and this temple was one of the wonders of the world, and it's huge and amazing. And there's one scholar and world traveler, and I forget his name. He was an ancient writer, and he talked about seeing the hanging gardens of Babylon, seeing the great lighthouse in the library at Alexandria, seeing the temple of Herod. But he said, but nothing compared to the temple to Diana. That truly was the greatest wonder he had ever seen, and just marveled at the magnificence of this temple. And so that was their big deal there at Ephesus. And so Demetrius the silversmith, he made little mini Dianas, so you could have one at home and not have to go far to do your worshiping of your pagan goddess. And when people were converting to Christianity, well, they were losing money. And so a mob forms. They all know that they don't like Paul. They don't like Christians. They don't like Jesus. They don't know why they don't like Paul or Christians or Jesus. They just know they don't like them. And it's funny, I think one of my favorite lines in here is in verse 32. Therefore, some cried one thing and some another, for the assembly was confused, and most of them did not know why they had come to gather. And so, as you look at this story and this account, right, it gets broken up because Rome's in charge, and Rome doesn't like riots, and so they're saying we need to be careful because, a big riot is forming. And look at this, the way this riot forms. 2 hours. Great is Diana of the Ephesians. 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 I'm going to see how long I can go until everyone logs out. Great is Diana of the Ephesians. No, but 2 hours. That's the idea. It just went on and on and on. And it's a big multitude of people who are confused, who don't know what the world they're talking about, but they just know they don't like Christians, they don't like conservatives, they don't like, they don't like morality. And yes, Enrique, it sounds like a college protest. And so that's the main thing. As we see this group, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know why they're doing it, but it's that mob mentality. And very often today, we're going to find that many of the people whom we try to witness to, whom we try to change the minds of, are very much like these people at Ephesus. And I think this is where we see the words of our Lord, where he says, do not cast your pearls before swine, or nor that which is holy before dogs. You see, we're not supposed to just spend all this time trying to give the precious gospel when we can tell they're not really interested in hearing any logic at this point. And so maybe that's just our word of discernment today. Not a personal growth application, although you'll probably have a lot more time for personal growth if you don't waste your time throwing your pearls before swine. You see, these guys didn't even know why they were there, and they didn't care. They just knew that they didn't like the Christians. They just knew they didn't like the way. And as you are sharing with people, one, don't be surprised when persecution comes. But two, pay attention. Is this person sincerely asking you questions, or are they just arguing? And if they're just arguing, don't waste your time. You'll notice that Paul's companions just told him not to go in there. Now, they feared for his life, but still there's a little mini lesson snuck in that, Paul, don't even waste your time. Don't even go in there. Don't even try and persuade them. No one's persuading this crowd. They don't really care about logic at this point. This morning I was sharing with a friend who's been witnessing to a couple of Mormons, or a handful of Mormons. And, she's showing all the arguments she's using. And I just encourage her, saying, you know what? Quite often, they're not going to be persuaded by logic. You can show them all the problems with the Book of Mormon. You can show them all the facts. You can show them how archaeology goes against it. You can show how science goes against it, in DNA and genetics. You can show them, but they're not really interested. And you can tell when they maybe are interested, and in that case, pursue. But if you're dealing with a mob, if you're dealing with people who don't even know why they're saying what they're saying, they're just basically ready to argue with you, well, don't waste your time. Save the precious gospel for the people who want to be saved. Now, that doesn't mean we give up hope on our loved ones or things like that, but we are to be wise with our time. And so rather than arguing arguments that aren't going to go anywhere, save your energy, spend it in prayer. Save your energy and save it for the day when someone who really needs and wants the gospel is coming to ask you about it. Great is the Diana of the Ephesians. Great is Diana of the Ephesians. Great is Diana of the... You hear that today, don't you? People on Facebook, people on Twitter, people on the news. Yeah, just rambling. They don't know why they're saying it. They just know that they don't like God. So, Let's be wise with our time and use it for the glory of God by focusing in on those who are truly ready and desiring to hear the gospel. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the morning. Adios.